So, hi everybody, I'm Amber. I work for the Terry Foundation, and I'm super excited to be joined today by Sarah, one of our alumni. And we're just going to do a quick Terry in 30 chat about her life and about her experiences during and after college and some lessons that she's learned in changing industries and where she's at currently. So welcome, Sarah. I'm so happy to have the opportunity to chat with you today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Like Amber said, I'm Sarah. I was a UT 2007 Terry Scholar. I went to, or I applied to business school. I'll talk a little bit more about that. And I graduated with an MIS major and a management information systems major and a minor in management.
So what made you choose those majors, or that focus area for your undergrad?
Yeah, to be honest, it was kind of like a process of elimination. I knew I was not cut out for anything science or health related. My dad is a small business owner, and so I've always seen him navigate his business, and I always kind of imagined myself going into business school. What exact trajectory, that took a while to figure out. But I learned pretty quickly that I loved building stuff and I love technology, and so MIS was the perfect fit for me.
So when did you have kind of like that light bulb moment? Was there a particular class or a particular project that kind of solidified that for you?
Yeah, I think whenever we started, so there's one course, I forgot what it was, but it was where we started designing our own applications, started building websites, and kind of like me designing like the code behind it and seeing everything come and how it like came to work. That was super fulfilling for me to kind of like put my hands on something and, you know, do all the coding and put it all together and see it work effectively. But my favorite part of the whole thing is seeing processes like work efficiently, and giving the end user, like people who use these applications, the best user experience. So instead of like clicking 10, 20 different times for something, like what's the best shortcut, what's the best way for people to do those things. And so, yeah.
That's awesome. So then how did that translate to what you eventually started doing right after college?
Yeah, so while I was at UT, I fortunately got an internship with Halliburton. And it was an internship with their IT department. And the cool thing about that was you were brought in to kind of design these processes and these overlook like all their applications to see where things could be improved. And Halliburton is a pretty old oil and gas company. So, you know, there's always room for improvement there. So that was pretty fun. But they also kind of exposed you to all these like different other departments too. So that was neat. So after that internship, I got offered a full-time job there, which was awesome. And I was there for 3 years working in their application services group. And in that role, I was supporting 7 global applications that kind of helped keep like the oil rigs up and all the alerts that go along with them. And their website, intranet and extranet, or in their internet site. And so that was really fun to just kind of see all the things technology-wise that go into running such a big organization like that. And yeah, it was definitely a really great learning experience there.
So what was that like having the responsibility for those processes on your shoulders as like a new grad, somebody like fresh out of school?
Yeah, it was definitely nerve-wracking. There were times when I was responsible for like a 11 p.m. because we worked with, you know, offshore folks. And so people like in India are on the opposite, you know, timetable as us. So at 11 p.m. we would have to make sure that everything was ready to go. And I had to make sure that all the proper testing was done. And, you know, like I said, it was a great learning experience. So I didn't always get it right. And which is super nerve-wracking, but my bosses and, you know, all the people on my teams, they're super gracious too. And they say, you know, if it doesn't work, it's like not the end of the world. Like it will get fixed one way or the other. So that was really comforting for me during those times, you know. But yeah, there was a lot of pressure, especially like, okay, you can't have these high alerts on rigs and stuff. So, you don't want to alarm anyone, and any sort of, outages or anything, it could be like pretty severe. And so, whew, yeah, I don't miss, I don't miss supporting those applications. Yeah,
I
but
remember talking to people, and then my personal experience too, fresh out of college, you have those moments where you look around sometimes and you're like, wait, who decided that I was the one that needed to be doing this right now?
oh yeah, no, seriously.
How that happened.
Yeah, like, me? Are you sure? Me? Yeah, for sure. But over time, like, you kind of get the hang of it, and you have your rhythms and you have your processes set. And again, like, it's all a learning process, and there's grace when you mess up. And so I was really thankful for that.
So in terms of, lessons learned, I think especially right when you got out of school, what do you think was one of the bigger ones that left an impression on you during that time period?
I would say, I think, like, working in that role, it was great because I did have a team to rely on. And typically, I think, like, over the years, I've learned that, like, my work style is very, like, independent, and I like to work on my own and accomplish things on my own. But it's okay to rely on your team, and it's okay to delegate certain tasks, and you want to trust them to really carry out those things. And at the end of it, at the end of the project, it is the most rewarding thing to say that we did this together. And it's always a great feeling to know that, like, when you, like, mess up or fall short somewhere, somebody else can pick you up. So I learned a lot about, like, working on teams in that role, and just, like, accepting that I don't have to do all this on my own, and I don't have to carry, like, all the pressure or all the burden. So that was really great.
And that can be hard, I think, when we're also feeling this pressure to, like, prove ourselves too, especially when you're new somewhere. Sure.
Yeah.
Or you're trying to convince yourself that you belong that you belong there. Yeah. Even.
For sure. And I don't know, I think that, like, once I came out of college, I was really eager and ambitious to grow professionally and learn as much as I could, which, all those things came over with time, but, like, it just wasn't everything, And I think we probably put so much focus on that we lose sight of, like, the experience itself. And so, yeah, for sure.
So the reason we're chatting today is that you made a shift in your career and you completely changed sectors. So I'm curious, at what point did you realize I want to do something different?
Yeah. So a little backstory: when I applied for schools at UT, I applied for the business school, and I also applied for a school of social work. Which, when I tell people that, people are like, whoa, those are, like, opposite ends of the spectrum. And I was like, no, I can totally see them going hand in hand, because I have, like, this business mindset, but at the same time, I wanted to work for, like, a greater cause or a greater good, something I cared about. I thought those things perfectly made sense. But when I share that with other people, they're just like, that's really weird.
I can totally relate. My major was biology and I got a business minor. So.
Yeah, exactly. So, but, like, the beauty of it now is, like, watching those two worlds come together, which is where I'm at now. And so I always knew that I wanted to work in a nonprofit setting or work towards a cause that I cared about. And I totally knew that my time at Halliburton was borrowed time and temporary, and I just wanted to use it as a learning experience, which I did, and they were so great, and it was such a great place to work at, and it was really hard to leave because corporate benefits are awesome. But I knew that, like, at some point I wanted to do something more or challenge myself to grow into my passion, and I wasn't necessarily passionate about oil rigs or maintaining internet sites. And I do care about helping people learn and adopt new technologies, but for what cause? So I started asking myself that question, And I knew that it was time to start applying to different places. So yeah, that was kind of the shift in mentality that I had. We had just finished a big project at Halliburton, and I felt really good about how that project went. And I was like, wow, I've learned so much through this. I was there for 3 years supporting different applications, learning about, what it takes to streamline processes so that you have a successful adoption in technology, and, getting customer buy-in and working with the technical side, working with the business side. And so all those things, I learned so much through my time there. And I was like, okay, I think it's time to see how I could apply these same skills to somewhere else, but perhaps with a cause that I really cared about. So yeah.
So then how did you make that move? What were the steps that you took?
Oh yeah, so I started applying everywhere. There's a lot of great nonprofits. In high school, I remember volunteering a lot, and so I had some great connections. But when you start looking at nonprofits and you start looking more specifically in the IT realm, at the time it felt like, a lot of nonprofits weren't investing in their IT, or if they did, they had a one man team, and that guy was running everything, and he doesn't leave for 30 or 40 years. And so
yeah,
my opportunities were really slim. I did find a few opportunities, but I never heard back or anything. And I ended up hearing about this fellowship program called ProInspire. And what they do is they take young professionals from the corporate sector and match them with a nonprofit or a social enterprise or a foundation or something of that sort, either in San Francisco or DC, using their same skill set. So, and that was, I was like, whoa, this is like exactly what I want to do. And when I heard of that opportunity, that was kind of also the start to like, okay, this is the time to apply and go into that. And so, yeah, I ended up applying. I got matched with a housing agency in San Francisco, and I was brought on as a general IT analyst. And so, and the nonprofit was called Community Housing Partnership. They're a supportive housing agency that focuses on getting folks that are homeless housing and helping them become self-sufficient. So they had a great mission, but the role was completely new for me, and they created a new role for me, which is challenging in itself. And yeah, I had no idea what I was getting myself into.
I'd say your observation of, nonprofits and wearing multiple hats and growing into your role by developing your skill set as you go is like spot on. So I've been in nonprofits for the last 12 years, and that's kind of like, it's a hallmark of having to do a lot with fewer resources, or having to be as efficient as possible. But one of the things that I have definitely noticed is that there are a lot of best practices from the business world that, nonprofits are increasingly employing, like, taking more care to stay on top of their technology needs, for example. But there's this huge misconception that nonprofit means that you have to operate like the opposite of a business. And it's just, that doesn't really jive. So
yeah, no, I 100% agree. So the great thing about ProInspire is, their whole mission is to bring in talent into the social pipeline. Because I think a lot of people have, like you said, that misconception of nonprofits, all you care about is the mission, and you care about helping people, and which it's all true, but there is a good way to do it and an efficient way to do it. And utilizing or leveraging those business practices from the corporate sector or whatever to make you more efficient, more effective, like those could definitely bring your mission further. So yeah, those are some of the things that I brought in as an IT analyst. And, I, like you said, wearing multiple hats, I was managing like the phone directory, the printer and internet installations, as well as, creating processes for new equipment, and managing their assets and things like that. And so, I mean, these are things that were not really in my like experience, but I kind of try to utilize what I could, what I learned building forms and stuff like that to track and like for reporting and things like that. And yeah, I hope I left that place better than it was when I came in. Yeah.
So, I mean, those specific job functions might not have been things that you had performed in name other places,
Yeah.
but it's that
Right.
it's that idea of process optimization and all of those things down to me just after the, a couple of times that we've talked, they go along with the way that your brain is wired. So
Yep, it's true.
it may not have been a role that you specifically had in that specific task that you did somewhere else, but
Yeah.
the way that you accomplish the goal is similar enough
Right.
to something that you were used to. And
Right.
the added benefit of the nonprofit having a fresh set of eyes to look at stuff is always good. One
Yeah.
of the things that an organization and businesses see this too, but if you have somewhere where there hasn't been a lot of changeover in perspective or viewpoint, it's really difficult for change to be enacted because it's sort of like, well, we've always done it this way. We haven't had to close our doors yet. So why would we shake things up or why would we change things? And sometimes it just takes a fresh set of eyes to even see that there's something that could be done better.
For sure. And coming in, I was a bit intimidated because this organization has been up and running and doing their thing for, the last 25 years. And, who am I, just this new, fresh, person. I wasn't even from San Francisco. Like what could I possibly contribute? But any tweaks in like process changes and utilizing technology to make their jobs better to further the mission. So that became kind of like my goal is like, okay, how can I leverage technology so that I can help you do your job where you're meeting people and growing people and helping others so that you could do your job better, And I think once you reframe technology in that light, people will become more receptive. And they're like, okay, yeah, I want to learn this new thing and I want to adopt this new process because it's going to help me do my job better. So yeah, that became my immediate focus as soon as I saw that was what, helped people adopt things quicker and easier.
That's awesome. Okay, so the fellowship is over. So what happened next?
Yeah, so the fellowship was only a year and a half, and it was also a great learning experience. Living in San Francisco is awesome, but it's very expensive. And so that was kind of a driving factor for me to move back to Houston. So I came back to Houston and I ended up connecting with a friend of a friend who works at Star Hope Mission. And Star Hope Mission, they are a big homeless services agency here in Houston too. They offer a lot of programs and mainly provide housing. And they were actually looking for someone to lead this case management tool implementation. And so it was like an application that, was out of the box, needed to be customized. The organization had never used this tool, so we had to design all the new processes that went alongside of it, how to get all that data, in a reporting fashion that would be helpful for our organization to see, how many folks are in programs, how many people are receiving services, how many people are graduating from our programs. And so I was like, this is awesome, because finally I could work with applications again, which is something that I love doing, training people in applications and, how to, like you said, process optimization, and really leveraging technology, like I said, so that, our case managers, people who work directly with our clients and our residents so that they could be of better service to them, so that they don't have to worry about, putting this in an Excel and wrapping it up and sending it off to, someone for the next 2 weeks. All this data would be captured in real time. And so I learned about that project and I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. And so I've been there for 4 years now. And that case management tool is my baby. And yeah, I've just kind of been running with that. And again, learning about, you know, how to make processes easier for our folks, for our staff, so that they could help our clients and residents more efficiently. Yeah.
So what does a typical day look like for you?
Yeah, so every day is a little bit different. I would say it's half support. So it's half support and half project. So anytime, you know, I guess residents get stuck in their whole intake process, or they're trying to submit data, issues or things are not working accordingly, they would reach out to me for support. And then the other half of it is projects. And so anytime they're like, well, we have a volunteer that comes every day, and we need a way for her to scan how many kids get toys, and they're only allowed toys for once a month or something like that. How do we put this process in place? How do we get her using it? What tools do we need for her to be successful? And what will the report look like? And so all those things I kind of facilitate and design and then implement for them to use. So it's a very hands-on job, and it's very easy to see kind of the rewards and like people adopting it, and the report tells all. So yeah.
That's great. So you've made the transition, you've been in your position for the last 4 years, you've gotten a chance to grow, obviously to do something that you're super passionate about. For anybody who's thinking of making a similar shift, what advice would you give them in terms of looking at the skills that they may have, or they may think they've developed for one very specific purpose? And how that might still be able to move over elsewhere?
For sure. When I was entertaining the idea of going into the social sector, I thought I had to make a complete 180 shift. I thought I had to find a new role. I thought I would have to find a new industry. I thought I had to find a new place. And so all those things are pretty hard transitions. And so I'm glad that someone advised me, just change sectors and try to find a place where you could utilize your same skill set in a different industry. Because doing both of those things at the same time, it would have been so difficult, learning a new role and adopting like the new cultural challenges of a new organization and industry. So I would advise, like, if you can, try to find a way to utilize your skill set, the things that you've learned, your technical skills, in a nonprofit setting or towards a cause that you care about. It doesn't have to be nonprofit; it could be social enterprise or whatever. But I would just slowly make that transition and not try to do it all at once.
So in terms of sort of like parsing out what those translatable skills are, I mean, what did that look like for you? It sounds like you were able to pull a lot of that technical side over, but on the side of soft skills too, what were some ways that you were able to show, I was somewhere like Halliburton for a while, but here's how I can still make that work for you as an organization, in the nonprofit sector?
Yeah. So, I mean, fortunately for me, I love to say that everything I learned in college I'm using today, which is, I know, a rare situation, but I definitely do think soft skills do take you a long way. The thing about going into the social sector is that it's all about the mission, and you really have to align all your skills to the mission. Like, okay, I can, optimize processes, I can work in applications, but how does that further the mission? And whenever you're applying or thinking or dreaming or talking about anyone entertaining a job in the social sector, I think, trying to figure out how to align your skill set with their mission is the most important. And that was a big cultural adjustment that I had, because in oil and gas, it's like, okay, I have these skill sets and I'm going to show up to my job and do them every day. And, so long as things aren't breaking all the time, then I'm doing okay, you know? But I think in the nonprofit or the social sector, like carrying out the mission is super important because that is ultimately why they exist. And so I really had to utilize my soft skills to, and in a nonprofit setting, and especially a homeless services agency, we care most about our residents and our clients and trying to do the best that we can. And so that kind of personable approach will always kind of help you along the way. Ultimately, like, you know, technology is great, but if you can't get people to buy in or adopt it, then it's useless. And so for me, I had to learn that, you know, I really have to build these relationships and take time with these relationships, and so that they can build trust in me as someone who's trying to get them to use it. And, you know, then people are more likely to be receptive. And, you know, technology is hard, you know, and especially for someone who has been using paper and pen for the last 25 years, you know, those things will not come easy. But it does make it more enjoyable if you have someone kind of encouraging you along the way and, you know, just trying to help you as much as they can. So, yeah.
The interpersonal skills, I think, are a huge one that I could definitely see how that translated over. But even your, you know, your interest in social work and your interest in problem solving from that aspect too, as a parent. There's so many elements of what you would consider customer service or customer experience or user experience that come in from so many different angles whenever you're in a nonprofit, because everything is working towards the mission. But it's not just saying, okay, well, how do we provide, I'll say customer service, but in this case, you know, you have like multiple customers, right? You have the people you serve, but then you also have internally the people on your team and the people whose buy-in you have to make sure that you maintain so that they can see the difference they're making.
Absolutely.
And I think that can be a challenge for some people who are only thinking about, well, how are my actions going outward?
Right.
And I think that can also be a challenge for somebody who's trying to figure out where they fit. So when you mentioned earlier, well, I don't have any experience. So how am I going to move over? What am I going to do? Well, that can be a challenge if you're thinking about it from the standpoint of, I've never been a service provider that way before. But that background support is just as important to make sure they're able to do what it is that they do.
That's right. Yeah, for sure. I just think, you definitely, like, my people skills, like I said earlier, like if I could work by myself, like in a closet somewhere, like that would be fine too. But having, you know, I do love people as well, and I love helping them and really seeing them, you know, really get it. It's so rewarding. And, you know, it just makes the process so much easier when you are encouraging someone, and, you know, really when they get the sense that you're truly trying to help them, not just throw like all this new technology at them. Like, I feel like that goes so far. Yeah.
So just for some perspective, because we're going to like record this and have it available for Terry's, you know, to access later. We're in August 2020, practically into September 2020. So the world right now is operating very differently than it did at this point last year. What does that mean for the way that your job functions? I mean, how has that changed for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, I luckily am very grateful to be able to do my job at home. But, you know, the thing about working from home on applications like this, the application, it's a case management tool, and technically we're offering case management around the clock, you know. So when people are getting meals for dinner, when they're getting meals for breakfast, when they're meeting with their case managers for a session, trying to build on their goals and getting services and all that, like that happens around the clock. And so luckily for me, I'm able to work wherever I am. And so, but I'm constantly supporting them. And during this time, it has been tricky just because, you know, we are trying to navigate these weird times, and it's hard to do case management, but we are trying to learn along the way and trying to be innovative. And so a lot of new processes have come up for me too. They're just like, okay, we want to be able to track temperature readings. And, now like, okay, what does programs look like now that we can't, have everyone, now that we have to incorporate social distancing? How do we track that? And, what will our programs look like now? And is it understandable that our numbers, our census is going down or up or whatnot, So yeah, a lot of data comes in and out of this application. And so I'm kind of still 100%, doing my job. Yeah. So if anything, it's probably being utilized more, just because case management may not be like face to face, but so we're trying to figure out innovative ways to meet with them, maybe over the phone or behind a glass screen or something like that. But either way, the services still need to be provided. And so that is very much still happening.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think there's a lot that's happened, over the last 5 to 6 months, especially with everybody, private sector, public sector, nonprofits, having to change the way they operate, and then probably seeing some practices that they've had to put in place that are going to be permanently adopted. Because I think so here for the foundation, for example, there's a lot that we've been doing with our alumni engagement. This is a prime example. Conversations like this that we talked about, well, we would love to do this more. We would love to figure out ways to make it happen, especially for alumni who don't live in Texas. And it took something like a pandemic forcing us to try something new that has resulted in more opportunities like this one. So has there been anything like that in the way that you guys work that you can tell is probably going to stick around once things go back to whatever normal looks like?
Our new norm. No, I feel like utilizing things like this, like Zoom conference calls, the thing about technology is that people, will do every possible workaround, every possible workaround till they have to use it. And now, like in this situation, we're being forced to use certain technologies like Zoom conference calls instead of, being able to pop into somebody's office or walk over for a drive-by meeting or something like that. People are forced to send you an email because nobody wants to see people. They're trying to maintain their distance or whatnot. So I think, from our perspective, from a general technology perspective, getting people to adopt these new, tools like Teams or Zoom, it's been great for us because these tools should allow you to work more efficiently. Instead of having an hour meeting, that could all be summarized in an email. And so, things like that, I definitely think we have gotten like better at trying to utilize the tools that we have and really kind of invest in how like productive it can make us.
That's great. Well, I want to thank you again for having this chat with me today and kind of sharing your story. One last piece of advice that you might have for fellow Terry scholars that are considering making a transition the way that you did?
Yeah, I think for me, the most important thing like in my transition was having a support group. And so the great thing about the Pro Inspire Fellowship group is that, it was a group of us that were making this transition from the corporate sector to the nonprofit sector. And there's a lot of challenges in that, but we were all kind of going through it together, which is super helpful. So if anybody has any questions or needs to vent or like, because the changes are not only in your role, but the expectations, the organization as a whole, like adopting those different cultural things, those can all be challenges, but it just was so great to have someone alongside you who either knew what you were going through too, or just somebody who you could talk to about it. So that was a huge blessing for me. And so if anybody is going through that transition or even entertaining it, feel free to reach out to me, shoot me an email or anything. All my stuff is on Terry Connect. And so I'd be happy to hear you out, hear you vent, or just talk through it.
That's awesome. Again, Sarah, thank you so much. Like she said, she's on Terry Connect. There are a ton of alumni across almost any sector you can imagine. And I know it can be pretty intimidating to reach out to somebody that you don't know and that you think is a total stranger. But I think one barrier that hopefully you feel has been lowered is the fact that you're both Terry scholars.
Yeah.
And especially if somebody on Terry Connect has said they're willing to help, they're literally waiting for you to reach out to them. And that's just one of the plus sides of this community, is the fact that networking and having personal connections is so important, but you don't necessarily have to start from scratch. It's already built in just by nature of being a Terry.
For sure. And thank you, Amber, for doing everything that you do to keep us connected. I know that's a job in itself, so really appreciate you.
I just love having these conversations, like overall, hearing how people are utilizing their strengths and the things that they're passionate about to turn around and make whatever their impact on the world is supposed to look like. And that's different for everybody. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about this scholarship is we're not setting you on one track and saying, go, this is the path you're supposed to follow. We're saying, figure out what you're good at, figure out where you want to make your mark, figure out what makes you happy, and then go do it. So I love that. Just thank you for being such an example of that.
Oh, thank you. I learned it from you guys.
All right. So just a reminder, everybody, make sure that you reach out and say hi to Sarah and some other alumni on Terry Connect. If you're an alum and you want to share your story, I'd love to have a chat with you. We can do something similar, or there are alumni panels. Just the options are endless as long as we have people willing to participate. So thank you all so much.
Thanks, Amber.